All right, welcome. My name is Ashton Kroner. I am your host of the Veteran Cancer Talk. I have my co-host Casey with me, and then our two special guests for today are Kate and Ron Belany, stage 4 colon cancer, and also current serving Navy sailor. So welcome, Kate. Welcome, Ron. So glad to have you on the show.
Thank you. We're excited
It's
to be
good to be
here.
here. Thank you.
So Ron, tell me a little bit about what you do in the Navy.
So I was a 2008 Naval Academy graduate, commissioned as a flight officer, and finished up flight school in 2010. Got out to my first squadron in Hawaii. Met Kate while I was stationed out in Hawaii after my first deployment. Moved here to Jacksonville to be an instructor at the Fleet Replacement Squadron in 2014. Transitioned out to San Diego in 2017 as a shooter on the Theodore Roosevelt. Spent about a year in Millington doing some flag work, and then back to Jacksonville for my department head tour and follow-on orders. So we've been in Jacksonville now for 6 years, going on 7, since about 2019.
That's almost unheard of. I hardly ever talk to anybody that gets to spend 6 years in one duty station. Do you enjoy the area? Did you fight to stay here in this particular area, or?
Yeah, Jacksonville is such a strange city. It's not some place that neither Kate nor I thought that we were going to call home, but we've been here for so long that it's kind of become that. Our friend and work circles are here. Kate has family right down the road in Tampa, so the kids get to see their grandparents, every so often. Getting follow-on orders after my department head tour to the same, home port station was extremely convenient. And then once the cancer diagnosis hit, they couldn't PCS me anywhere else. So I had to stay in place in my current unit.
Now, were you being offered, because I hear stories at least online, and other people that we've talked to, they were kind of given the option to be able to retire because of their medical diagnosis. Is that something that, you were offered, or did you, were you wanting to be able to stay in and continue with your 20 years?
Yeah, so I was diagnosed in July of 2023, right after my 15-year mark. And the intent previous to the diagnosis was to serve my 20, get the health care, get the pension. I was still enjoying what I was doing, so quality of life was great. Diagnosis hit, and that kind of turned everything upside down, obviously. So I'll be at 18 years next month. May 23rd, I'll be at 18 years. So the 20-year finish line is extremely close. Throughout the treatment process, I've never gotten pressure from my command about transitioning out of the Navy.
Oh, that's wonderful. Kate, how was it for you? I mean, obviously, it's never easy being a military spouse, but then on top of that, he is still in the military and currently going through, cancer. So tell me about that.
Sure. Yeah, of course. I mean, a cancer diagnosis is never easy. On one side of things, it's made the military side of the house easier because, like Ron mentioned, we haven't had to move around and we have young children at home. So in that sense, it's made things a lot easier. And we don't have to, he's not deploying right now, so we're not having to deal with a deployment schedule. But of course, it's scary. I mean, we don't know what his future looks like. We try not to think about it very often because it's totally out of our control. But of course, it comes up from time to time, and we want him to be able to finish out his career.
So what's been the support like from the military community for you guys?
So, I'm in the P8 community, so the Maritime Patrol and Reconnaissance. It's a pretty large community, but having so many years in, the community gets smaller and smaller and smaller. So you tend to know a lot of the people that are still around. I still have some friends that are active duty from flight school, when I was going through back in like 2008, 2009 time frame. And they've absolutely stepped up, whether, food delivery, yard work, things like that I wasn't unable to take care of anymore. We've had tremendous support from the military community, who's more like family now.
I love this question. I don't think we've ever been asked that, but I have this just video replaying in my head. There was a week where Ron had a pretty big surgery. He had a colon resection, and his team just totally stepped up without us asking, without even asking us if it was really okay, which we appreciate because it's so hard to ask for help. It was almost 2 weeks long of someone showing up to our doorstep and providing us a home cooked meal for 2 weeks straight. And they would have continued that for as long as we wanted. Like we had to finally say like, okay, I think we've got it. But they've been incredible. And we're so thankful for that.
And it wasn't just meals. I was on a specialized diet too. So they had to go low residue, low fiber for me, and they stepped up and hit it out of the park.
So just went completely out of their way to make sure that your dietary restrictions are, you're eating healthy basically based off of those.
Yeah, and more importantly, the kids are fed.
Yeah, very true. So Ron, how did you even find out? Like, what happened? What caused you to be like, hey, something's up?
So I kind of danced around it for a while. I'm not saying that I ignored any major issues, but throughout my department head tour from 2020 to about 2022, I had lost 30 pounds. Kate and I had our first child, Gray, during that tour. I was extremely busy. I had deployed twice, and I kind of explained it away. We have this new kid, increased responsibilities at work. I'm not working out as much as I used to.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and I remember chalking it up to, I was pregnant at the time, and I was like, he just feels bad for me. He's not working out because I can't work out anymore, So I had just chalked it up to like, he's just empathizing with me, and he'll get right back to himself after I deliver this baby.
He has so much faith in me.
If anything, he should have been nesting, gaining weight.
No, it was the exact opposite. And over the course of, months to years, my bowel movements had changed as well. So I went from maybe 2 to 3 bowel movements a day to 6 or 7, incomplete. Just spending a lot of time in the bathroom, abdominal pain. And it came to a head Memorial Day weekend of 2023, where I was doubled over in pain just with abdominal cramping. Kate was 8 months pregnant at the time, and I was complaining to her that my stomach hurt and I was tired. And she
pregnant lady.
Yeah. I didn't get the empathetic response that I was expecting. It was basically, either go to the doctor or shut up. Nicer words than that, but that kind of spurred everything. Went to the doctor, did some lab work, stool samples. They did a chest x-ray, and they caught nodules on the fringe of the chest x-ray on my lungs. So they followed up with this is all Navy medicine, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
They followed up with a CT scan, found some lesions on my liver, and our daughter Rhodes was born on a Monday, and the diagnosis came that Friday.
Oh, wow.
So the Navy diagnosed me with some form of cancer, and then they outsourced me immediately out in town for a GI specialist. So, the endoscopy followed shortly after, and then a colonoscopy. So I knew that I had some sort of malignancy on June 23rd, and then the colonoscopy confirmed everything on July 3rd, 2023.
Kate, how was that? Just having a baby and you've had 2 children at this point, and goodness, how did that impact, you and your family?
Ron left out another piece of that story. So when he came, well, let me back up for a second. My father had just been diagnosed with prostate cancer. So we were actually, and he had come in, I just had the baby. So my parents had come up and they were taking a virtual appointment with his oncologist at the time to learn about whether his cancer had metastasized or not. So he had asked me, he's like, hey, do you mind sitting on the call, just taking notes and, kind of supporting your mother and I? And I was like, of course, trying to think of best case scenario in that instant. That was the timing. I was literally just wrapped up with that phone call. We found out that it had not metastasized for my father, which was great news. And then Ron comes home and he actually had a bouquet of roses and he was like, hey, I have cancer. And honestly, it didn't hit me. I think what in the moment, I just figured, okay, I'm sure it's minimal. What he does a little chemotherapy. and then we're done. Maybe it'll be a rough patch for a couple of months, but it'll be over. I don't think we didn't know the severity of that diagnosis in the moment. And it was also a misdiagnosis, which is another story. So I think we found out on a Friday and we had no one to talk to. So as that weekend went on, I think it started to sink in a little bit. And oh my gosh, incredibly emotional. He said, I was just had a baby postpartum, dealing with my father's diagnosis. Now Ron has cancer and we have no idea what's going on. So yeah, just a lot of your brain just goes to worst case scenario constantly. And it was a whole weekend of that and not being able to talk to anyone about it because I didn't want to share it. We didn't want to share it until we really knew what was going on. Like the cancer that they did diagnose him with, I love Ron for this. He does not do any of the research. And I think that's like totally saved his mental health here. But then I am the one that researches everything and has to look up everything. So he hands me this paper and it was called, they diagnosed him with fibromyalgia carcinoma, which of course I immediately like Google. And I think it was like less than 5% chance of living 5 years. And that's the paperwork that they sent him home with. And we just had to sit in that until Monday before we get him in with another doctor. Yeah. So the waiting is just, it's so hard to control when you don't know what's going on.
I have so much that I want to sit there and just ask. First of all, I want to comment the fact that, gave her a bouquet of flowers, knowing that Casey, come on, what the heck? Ron, you need to mentor him and mentor a lot of the guys. But no, that in itself, but goodness. So first of all, you were given a misdiagnosis, something that is obviously always hard, especially with something where you read 5 years. What was that conversation like between the two of you? First of all, did you tell him the prognosis or did you just kind of keep that to yourself?
No, I didn't tell him. I think I told my mom because I was inconsolable at one moment throughout the weekend. And my mom was like, what, talk to me. And I think I shared with her, I looked up the prognosis and luckily that's not what the cancer was, but what was she going to say? She, hugged me and we just sat for a second and, we had 2 young children. We had to move on.
Now I'm curious though, it took you guys obviously the weekend to be able to process a little bit, but at what point did you guys go from the misdiagnosis to actually knowing it was colon cancer? What was that time frame like?
June 23rd was, when they knew that there's some sort of malignancy. They sent me home with paperwork that had that fibromyalgia carcinoma on it. It was actually, the funny thing is that it was actually the radiology report. And I didn't know that there were diagnostics on those things. I don't know how he had diagnosed me with that based on the lesions that he saw on the CT scan with contrast, but that's kind of beside the point. A lot of happy circumstances fell into place. They outsourced me to Borland Gruber, a GI specialist out in town, and they just so happened to have some cancellations. So this was June. The next appointment was in August or September timeframe. Got off the phone. They called me back with the cancellation. They're like, we can see you on Monday. So we went in, saw the GI specialist. He ordered the endoscopy, and they got me in on the next day, I believe. I think it was a Tuesday endoscopy. Talking to the doctor after the scope, he said, it doesn't really look like cancer just based on the edges. However, we took a bunch of biopsies, and we're going to get back to you. The next day, I get a call. Yep, it came back malignant. However, it did not originate in the liver. So we're going to order a colonoscopy, and we're going to see if we can find, where it originated. So July 3rd was my colonoscopy. As soon as they got in there, they're like, yep, there it is. So it was a circumferential tumor about 6 inches up on my sigmoid colon, and that kind of started the whole oncology ball rolling once they found out what the primary was. So woke up from the colonoscopy, the GI doc was there. He said, we found the primary. You do have metastases in the liver, so you are stage 4 rectal adenocarcinoma at this point.
Wow. Ron, I'm not very knowledgeable on this particular cancer itself, never had it or anything like that. Can you tell me some of the symptoms you experienced before you got checked out? I know you said, you had stomach issues, bowel issues, and stuff like that. Is there any other thing that people might need to look out for?
definitely blood in the stool. Like I didn't have a prevalence of that, maybe once or twice. But what I realized after the fact is that my bowel movements were getting pencil thin, like super, super thin, just due to the circumferential tumor in my colon. So physically small hole constricted my bowel movements and made them far skinnier than what they used to be. Didn't really pay attention to that.
And and I have something to add too, just from a spouse's perspective on this, because some have asked me, like, didn't you notice I'm like going to the bathroom all the time? And I had, but it happened so gradually that it wasn't obvious. Like just day by day, it got a little bit worse, a little bit worse. And I should have picked up on it that he was in the bathroom for hours a day at that point. So that's just another red flag if your spouse's like bowel habits change, or to like tune into that. And cancer was just never on our mind. But something I've heard from another spouse is their husband deployed, and then when they got back, it was super obvious because they hadn't seen them for 6 months and it progressed over those 6 months. And she was like, oh my gosh, red flag. He's in the restroom for 3-4 hours. Like, go get checked out. So anyways, just sharing, like, deployments can help in that scenario where you notice the bigger change, but when you're with them all the time, it is really hard to pick up on.
I think you bring up a good point on that one, because that was something that, we had experienced as well. So Casey, he had testicular cancer, and he kept on complaining of his back hurting, his testicle was getting larger and everything. And I just remember laying down in bed one day, and he comes over and he was to show me his testicle. And I'm like, I don't want to see this. Not at the moment, but
Yeah.
but we're sitting there, like looking at that. I was like, I could just go to a doctor. Like, I'm not a doctor. I may work at a hospital, but like, do I look like a professional to you? And he's like, does it just look bigger? And I'm like, it looks like balls. Like, go to the doctor.
Sounds like you're
But
bragging.
but it's true though, because so many people, kind of sit there and ask like, well, did you not notice anything? And I'm like, no, I mean, yes, but no. I mean, he complained a lot more, but I mean, I kept on telling him to go to the doctor, and the doctor was like, no, you're fine. It's IBS.
Yeah.
Go take some magnesium, and or it's a muscle strain. It's, it's anything else but cancer. And so to your point, I mean, a lot of people, especially those that are younger, that's not the first thing that comes to your mind of cancer. It's anything else. And if you're looking at in the military culture, that authority coming from a doctor, because I didn't go to medical school. I know my body kind of, well, I want to say I know it pretty well. But if a doctor comes to me and it's like, oh, you're fine, I have an inclination of saying, yeah, I probably am overreacting a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And all credit to the Navy, regardless of the fibromyalgia carcinoma diagnosis. They didn't brush me off or, try to explain away my concerns at all. Like, let's get you the test that you need. And from the time that I spoke to my flight surgeon to the time that he sat me down in the lobby of the hospital and, kind of explained that radiation and chemotherapy was in my future, it was a matter of days to weeks. So you hear horror stories about, not just Navy medicine, but medicine period, kind of explaining things away and the problem exacerbating in the meantime. Didn't have that experience.
I don't say this often, but kudos to the Navy medical team. Hardly ever say that one in my life, but I'm glad that you were able to get that care, because you're right, not everybody gets that.
Mm-mm.
I do want to shift focus though. Okay, so after the diagnosis and being able to get, I guess next steps, after the colonoscopy, talk to me a little bit about the treatment from the time that you were waiting. Obviously, you had a couple of weeks, but talk to me about going into your treatment, those conversations that you were having with, each other, and what that process was like for you and your family.
That was a blur for me, at least. So July 3rd, diagnosis, stage 4 rectal adenocarcinoma. July 18th, I had a port placed for chemotherapy. July 19th, I started chemotherapy. And in between all of that, we met our oncologist. Kate was there for every single one of those appointments. And, one of the first things that my oncologist did was, she stood up and she hugged me. She's like, we're going to beat this thing. So I don't know if you can remember any specifics, Kate, but that like 2.5 week time frame really was a blur for me.
Yeah, I think we were just in shock and just like happy that we had answers at this point. It was better than waiting around, even though the answers weren't great. Like, the answers kept getting worse, but we were just happy to have a plan, an oncologist that was incredible and really supported him and said those words, like, we're going to beat this. And so we felt good.
So what were the infusions like for you?
So I started out on something called Folfox, pretty routine standard of care for colon cancer. It was about a 6 or 7 hour infusion in the chair, and then they gave me a take-home pump for 48 hours that continued the chemotherapy treatment. And then I'd get treatment on Tuesday, and then I'd get the pump removed on Thursday. And it wasn't like you see on like TV or movies where like actively vomiting during chemotherapy. I felt off, and I could tell that something was being pumped into my body, but I was able to drive to and from these appointments just fine. I would feel sick for the next 2 days while I had the pump on, and then I would be down for maybe 3 or 4 days after that. But as I got more and more of these treatments, it was cumulative. So my downtime went from 3 days to 4 days to 5 days, and I was on a biweekly treatment schedule. So initially I had 4 bad days and 10 good days, and I got all the way up to about 9 bad days and 5 good days as treatment progressed. That was from July to around November of 2023, and then they put me on maintenance chemo, just based on the efficacy. I was on something called oxaliplatin originally, and they gave me 8 infusions of that, and they wanted to save the oxaliplatin for when we really needed it as kind of a silver bullet. Because I think you're only allowed to get 12 infusions of oxaliplatin. Is that right, Kate?
I don't know if there's like per se a limit, maybe in one go, like in one stint, because it just causes a lot of permanent neuropathy. So you can't do much more than most people cannot handle more than that.
Yeah, of course. Those side effects really get you. Are you? I'm guessing neuropathy is probably something you're dealing with now.
So luckily,
is there anything else?
Luckily, my neuropathy, it came on, but as I got off of oxaliplatin, the neuropathy kind of faded away. The cold sensitivity and everything that came with that oxaliplatin has faded away. So it got to the point where I was having difficulty like tying my shoes and like buttoning buttons just based on the numbness in my fingertips. Also had numbness in my toes and numbness on the tip of my tongue. But the further out that I got from being off of oxaliplatin, those side effects faded away, luckily.
Excellent. That's good to know. A lot of people, it's a lifelong thing that they have to fight with after a certain chemos and radiation and everything. So that's good that you weren't too affected by it for long term.
Now, I did talk to somebody that was going through colon cancer, and I found something out when it comes to like the cold sensitivity is they would actually get, like, they were told by one of their oncologists to get to put on your hands. So you're actually putting like your hands in a, cold, like you're actually freezing your hands, but it's actually supposed to help with that cold sensitivity. Were you ever offered or told about anything like that?
Yeah, they actually had that at the oncologist's office in the infusion room. I never used it. They said that also the cold sensitivity was primarily things that you drink or eat. So anything colder than room temperature, it's going to feel like you're swallowing needles. And I can absolutely attest to that. It did not feel good. But one of the things that they had recommended was actually sucking on ice cubes during the treatment to kind of ease those symptoms. Something that I didn't try because it was extremely painful, but that was a recommendation.
Yeah, I got one. So Kate, this is for you, okay?
Mm-hmm.
What is the one complaint that he's not saying?
Regarding like chemotherapy treatments or like side effects?
Just the whole experience. He seemed, Ron, you seem like, you're just centered. This is it. But I know, Kate, there's something that's fiery that you have to say about this.
No, he handled it really well, if I'm being honest. Like I don't know, just had a good mentality about it. Like, we're gonna beat this, period. And I'm gonna make the most I possibly can out of this time. So he, like, of course, when he was actively getting chemotherapy, like, he was on the couch, but he was still trying to be present with the kids, even though I know it had to have been so hard because he was so sick. But he was still like hang out on the couch and like try to play games with them and just try to be as present as possible, even though I know it had to have been awful, but he's not a big complainer. So he handled it well.
Yeah, I'm usually not a big complainer either, but during chemo and everything, mellow. Like it just, at least to me, it just that mellowness. You just got to take it. You just got to be as happy and calm as possible. But the caregiver just turns fiery, like go getter out there, researching everything, talking to everyone, scribbling down notes for us. They really take care of us, and the caregiver gets barely any credit for this whole ordeal. But yeah, you and Ashton, you two really carried Ron and I'm sure.
I mean, he made chemo look easy. I will say that I had shoulder surgery like about a year after he completed chemo. And I mean, I'm like sitting there shaking, like my whole body's having the shakes because of pain and everything. And then he's like, I went through chemo. And I'm like, you can't keep bringing up the cancer card, dude.
Like, it's over. It's over.
Yeah. You can't keep doing this. But no, I mean, he made it look really easy. But I mean, how was it for a caregiver? I know I could not control, I mean, you can only control what, that's put in front of you. And so mine was obviously through the appointments and asking the questions and doing the research and making sure that he was, where he was supposed to be at the correct times. Because he had that California vibe, just kind of going with the flow. I'm going to do what I'm told. And, I mean, for me, it was very frustrating, but so I kind of was more or less his gatekeeper for the longest time. How is that for you? I mean, relatable, non-relatable?
I think pretty similar. I mentioned it earlier. Ron still is very, I don't want to know because I don't need to read the prognoses. I don't need to know all the details. So I think just trusts me to kind of do that research. Similar to you, Ashton, like immediately try to figure out what's within our control, because we can't control the chemo. We can't control really how his body handles it and what happens to the tumors, but we can control nutrition and exercise minimally. And, try to look at some of the other things like strengthening your mind, meditation. We started looking at other opportunities to improve the outcome as much as we could. Or that's kind of where I invested all of my time and energy.
I love that. So Ron, how are you guys doing? I mean, how are you doing now? I know obviously you're on, some, still some health things kind of going on with you, but tell me, how are you doing?
I mean, I still intend to live forever. I think that's one of the first things that I told Kate post-diagnosis. I remember standing in our bedroom on that Friday, that June 23rd, and had the radiology report, and, it was emotional, but I told Kate, I was like, I'm going to live forever. And that's still the intent. I am currently on my second clinical trial up in North Carolina, so I get treated in the Charlotte area up in Huntersville every 3 weeks. I've been with that clinic since late 2024, and I'm now on a pure immunotherapy clinical trial since around the Thanksgiving timeframe of last year.
Goodness. Now, Kate, do you go with Ron when he's going to North Carolina still?
Good question. And that's like honestly something that I've always really struggled with, because I think that's what's so hard about having cancer in your 30s, because I can't. I have a job and a career, and we have 2 little ones at home, and I'd love to be there every couple of weeks with Ron, but I can't. So luckily it's very close. I mean, it's a 45-minute flight for you, Ron, and he can do it in a day. He kind of just leaves first thing in the morning, gets the treatment, and then is usually home in the evening, or maybe he'll stay over like one night. And I think he has it pretty locked down now. It's been a couple years on this schedule. And also I've been there a few times to get to know the staff there, which that's a whole nother story on clinical trial staff. They're incredible and they care so much, and we're so thankful for them. And they take seriously the best care of him. Never forget when it was his birthday and he had to go for a treatment, and they like decorated his chair and had a cake, and everyone was there to sing to him. And it was just like so kind, because I couldn't be there, but they're truly, we consider them family.
Oh, that's wonderful.
That is wonderful. Now, since you're taking, basically a plane to do some of these things, is these experimental trials and everything, are they making your like white blood count drop like chemo did, or is there any concerns with traveling like that?
So previously, the first clinical trial that I was on was in a chemotherapy, immunotherapy hybrid. So I did have a lot of issues with my hemoglobin, my white blood cell count, my red blood cell count, basically all of my blood counts. My neutrophils, they advised me that I should be wearing masks and protecting my immune system when I traveled commercially. But it was kind of the nature of the beast, had to get up there somehow and I had to get back to Jacksonville somehow.
That is a good question, though, because we did find a really amazing nonprofit that originally, when we just didn't know, because my huge concern was he's going to be feeling terrible, like maybe sick, throwing up, whatever, post-treatment, and then he's going to have to get on a flight and be around all these people. So yeah, it was a huge concern up front. And there is a nonprofit, I'll have to find the name, that they're specific to military and they offer free private flights. So we did utilize them the first couple of rounds just until we kind of figured out like, okay, I think he's in a good spot. He can handle it. He's not super sick after the treatment, or like he doesn't start getting sick for like several days later. So we used them up front, and I'll have to find their name because they're awesome.
Was it Veterans Airlift?
That's it. Yeah.
You said Veterans Airlift?
Yeah, so it's basically
Okay, we'll have to reach out to them.
it was basically a network of private pilots that donated their time and their fuel to transport folks that were going through urgent medical treatment. So Kate would put in the request, hey, Ron needs to get from here to here on this date and back, and that organization would put out to their network of pilots, hey, is anybody available to pick up this trip? So
when you say pilots and everything, are we talking commercial pilots? We're talking about private pilots, like small crop dusters?
Yeah, that's
what kind of travel was
it? So it all depended. So they weren't necessarily licensed commercial pilots. These were private pilots. One was a hobby pilot guy. He was just like, I like boats and I like planes. He flew me out of Tampa up to Charlotte one time. Another one was like a Cessna 182. And then probably the nicest one that I flew on, it was I cannot remember the type of jet that it was, but it was like an 8-seat jet that, he picked me up in, and it was almost as short as a commercial flight, but the convenient thing about this is that, I'd throw my backpack on and walk to the plane, and then we'd take off and we'd go fly. There's no TSA. There's nothing. Didn't really have to deal with people if I didn't want to deal with people, which is beautiful.
Yeah, it's crazy how many different like nonprofits or programs are out there that no one knows about unless you start really researching. So we love doing this little podcast and talking to other veterans that went through this process, because now we have another organization we can be like, hey, go to there if you need it.
Yeah, and I think that
they were awesome.
Another thing that active duty folks don't really know about is if you have available medical treatment that requires travel, your command is responsible for paying for that, getting you there and back. So I didn't know about this until we started this clinical trial, and luckily I have a case manager who works on base, and she introduced me to this program that's part of TRICARE, and not only will they pay for my travel up there, but if you have like a non-medical attendee need, like if Kate ever needed to come with me, they would also pay for her ticket up there as well, along with, per diem for her, which eased the burden tremendously.
So is that like a program, or is it just baked in that no one talks about? Do you have any additional information on that? And you said TRICARE, so does that mean anyone in TRICARE can utilize this too?
Yeah, so I worked it through the Naval Hospital here in Jacksonville, but very, very easy process to get the appropriate paperwork to my command. And then I don't know if you're familiar with DTS, the Defense Travel System. So just like any travel that you're scheduling through the Navy, that's how I book all of my travel up for treatment, just like a normal travel claim, as if I was traveling for business.
That's good advice. I'm absolutely loving the fact that you're able to travel for your infusions in a jet. That's one way to be able to get there.
Yeah.
We don't do it anymore.
Awesome.
It was just the first place in the front.
No, that's awesome. So what is that? I mean, what is that like whenever you're having your down days? Is your command really supportive? I know like when I was going through surgery or when I had my baby, they gave me 45 days of convalescent leave, but is it kind of just rolling? You just let them know that, hey, I'm not feeling good today, and they're accommodating, or what does that look like for,
So there are a few silver linings throughout this entire process, and my work situation was definitely one of those silver linings. So I was on shore tour, still am, when I was diagnosed, so I wasn't deploying. And once I brought the diagnosis to the command, it turned into a, hey, whatever you need type situation. How can the command support you? And luckily, the department that I work in, I have 20 high functioning lieutenants that are able to kind of carry the water when I'm out. So workflow is seamless regardless of whether I'm in the office or not. So that kind of added to my flexibility with work. But never once have I gotten any pushback on the work side of things. And it's just somewhere that I'm lucky to be in the command that I'm in. I think that rank also has a lot to do with it, unfortunately. I'm an 05 right now, so there has never been much pushback on, hey, where are you? The command kind of takes my word for it, hey, I'm in treatment, and I'm not feeling human right now, so I will be working from home, if at all. Not the case for everybody, and I realize
Now,
that.
do you have to still participate in any type of like training exercise, like for your annuals? I know we have like the PFTs in the Marine Corps, but anything like that, or are you exempt
Yeah,
for
I'm
now?
actually exempt, and I have been since my diagnosis. So they still do my BCAs, my body composition assessment and everything like that once or twice a year, and then everything physical is waived.
So what is the plan for after retirement? Are you looking at a future career and kind of doing the same thing that you're doing now?
No, that was never the plan. I kind of wanted to distance myself from anything Navy or contractor related. If I woke up and I found myself doing the same thing that I'm doing now, but in a civilian, polo, I don't think that would be very fulfilling for me. I joke with Kate, and I have joked with her for years about, not really knowing what I want to be when I grow up, because I've been in the Navy since I was 17, and I'm 39 now, so still some thought that needs to go into that. I think that we're evolving every day, and we're kind of figuring out our way, with my diagnosis being a big part of post Navy life.
Now, I want to add to that a little bit because I think one of the things about being in the military is that you're constantly thinking about like, what's next? What's next? What's my next duty station? What's my next promotion? We would move somewhere and immediately be thinking about where are we going next? Like that was a constant conversation. And I will say I'm appreciative of cancer in this way that we've certainly slowed things down and tried to just appreciate where we're at right now, like today, and not think too far beyond next week. And like, although we'd love to think 2 years out, I feel like we can't. We can only look at like the next few weeks and where we're at right now and just be like so appreciative for that. So I think cancer has changed our mindset in that way. And not that we're not career driven or that Ron's not career driven and is just like, oh, well, we'll figure it out. But it's taken the pressure off, weirdly, of having or feeling like we have to have it all figured out constantly. And I don't know if you guys experienced that too.
Yeah, and I mean, I quit my job up in Chicago and we moved to Florida on a whim.
Did you really?
We
Yeah.
did. We
That's
absolutely
awesome.
did. I remember, and you do bring up a really good point about, just the feeling that gratitude and everything. Cancer, and I say this almost to everybody I meet, was the best, worst experience for the both of us because it brought us together as a couple. You hear others say, that they didn't make it through a diagnosis like this because cancer will make or break a family, and it's really kind of looking back on those vows and relying on, each other for it. But at the end of the day, like we kept on saying, like, first of all, we had a dream that once he completed chemo, that we were going to go to Orlando, go to Universal, spend a week there in our happy place. And we decided to move to
Where's the
Florida
move
based
there?
off of that.
I
We should have moved
love
to
it.
Orlando. I mean, I
We
love
should have.
Jacksonville, but Orlando is somewhere that we really wanted to be able to go. I just know that we probably would have gone broke if we lived any closer to the parks. So, but I mean, it is trying to find those moments of being able to just live for the day to day. Because I know when I was working at Rush Hospital and I loved my job, I love my colleagues. I mean, the mission was there. I was just absolutely thrilled doing what I was doing. but I was doing it a lot and I was not focusing on the family. I mean, we all wear these different, hats and titles, and, at the end of the day, you kind of, forget about what's really important. And cancer, and, for us, I was watching him in the infusion chair whenever he was in the ICU or, wherever. And, we found out that we kind of had to like relearn each other. One, for ourselves, but then also as a couple too, because we let life kind of get in the way. And for us, I mean, it was really nice to connect again, on that level.
That's so interesting that you say that, because Kate and I would say that our priorities shifted drastically, overnight. A lot more emphasis on work-life balance now, focusing on the things that actually matter at the end of the day. And at the end of the day, the only thing that matters are experiences together as a family. Watching the children grow and their experiences, making sure that they're happy and fulfilled. And again, to reiterate what Kate was saying, we're not discounting our work lives, but we realize that they're far more important things than work. And it was a good recaging tool for us to realize that.
Well, we're approaching the end, but I got a few questions. Trust me, it's going to be pretty easy for the most part. Either one of you, but I want to start with Kate. What is one funny thing that's happened since you got Ron got the diagnosis until today? There's got to be one funny story that happened.
A funny story. I gotta think about that. Ron, if you have one off the top of your head, go. I have to think. There have obviously been plenty of fun moments, but funny. I have to think.
Let Casey share his story then.
Yeah,
So one of my funny ones. Here's one of my funny ones. I love it. It's my favorite. She has a different one, but my favorite one is right before I had to get orchiotomy, my testicle removed that had cancer in it. Her mother, my mother-in-law, brought us a go bag basically, because we instantly went to the hospital, didn't pack anything, toothbrush and nothing. It was close to Christmas, so she brought nutcracker socks. That was the only thing, nutcracker socks, and I had them on, and
I had them on.
Or sorry, she had them on. That's right. And she put it on my bed from the chair to the bed, right? And I was like, well, hell, that's offensive.
It said crushed it.
Yeah, it said crushed it. And I'm going into surgery that day or the next morning. I just thought it was so funny that I called in the nurse the next time she came in. I was like, tell me if this is offensive.
She busted a gut too.
Oh, yeah. We had people rolling. That's probably one of my favorite little memories from that.
I can't think of a specific moment, but Ron's always had a sense of humor, and that's how he's gotten, out of any serious situation, is his sense of humor. And I don't even know if this is going to come across funny if I say it out loud, but I giggled. He had like a really close friend that was deployed at the time when he got his diagnosis, and his friend was like, "Hey, I'm going to be back in like September. Can I see you when I get back?" And Ron immediately told me, he was like, "You can, but I'll be dead by then." So this guy, I think he started crying. Like, it was like one of Ron's best friends, like, started crying, and he's like, "Dude, no, yes, I'll be here in September. Come see me when you're out." And that's kind of how he's handled
that's not funny.
Yeah.
But that dark humor is military, so that's as dark as you could probably get.
It keeps my teeth white. Just messing with people like that. I'm able to separate out what I truly believe about my prognosis and that positive mindset, and the dark sense of humor side. So telling people that I'm a goner probably isn't funny to some, but it was hilarious to me, and it kept my spirits up. But sorry,
And yeah, at the end of the day, that's all that matters, is you're having a good time.
I gotta say though, I mean, were you FaceTime, or was it just a phone call? Because I would have loved
So
to
this
have
was a
seen their
text
face.
followed by an urgent FaceTime.
Yeah. No, I'll be dead, man. Don't worry about it.
So this is probably like July, August time frame, and he was coming back in October. So it wasn't that long. It was just like that.
Now, did you just leave them hanging for a few minutes? Like you saw you read
Just
it or something. You left them hanging for like 2 hours.
Erase. FaceTime call. Yeah. So I thought that was. I didn't think that him being as upset as he was funny. It was more so like a way for me to relieve stress myself. But I was actually pretty flattered at how emotional he got about it. Somebody did care, but I realized that that's not for everybody.
I mean, for our community, I will
Yeah,
say that it kind of fits right in with our group at least. Now, this is something that drives me absolutely crazy, but it's also my funny story that I get to, share on Casey. So we got really hardcore into telling people, basically go check your nuts, in a very protective conversation or whatever. But because he had testicular cancer, he was all about like, hey, go do the self check. And so like he had one of his really good friends from, back in the day call and was like, hey, I was thinking about you in the shower. And I'm like, what? You're thinking about my husband in the shower. So then, I mean, that ended up being a big, a big joke with us because anytime that they would call, but you have to find those moments of laughter because if not, I mean, just crying and being depressed all the time is just a really, really crappy way to be able to live. But before we get off, what is that one piece of advice that you would give as a caregiver, and then the one piece of advice that you give to somebody that is currently going through cancer? Kate, let's start with you.
For the caregiver's perspective, this is going to sound really selfish, but it is so true. You have to take care of yourself first. And I think initially I was not doing that. I was just running around trying to take care of the kids. And I told Ron, I'm like, you don't have to do anything. I'll do it all. And I mean, that lasted a couple months before I broke down. I was like, there's no way I can maintain this. There's no way. So finding out what makes you feel your strongest. And for me, I like meditation. I like getting some form of exercise in the morning. My gratitude journal at the end of the night. Like those are the things that kind of keep me going. And if I miss any of those things, and sleep, need at least 7 hours of good solid sleep. Like if I start to miss those things, I cannot show up for Ron or for the kids. So for me, and I would give that advice to any caregiver going through this, like you have to find what makes you feel best and strongest and pursue that constantly. Really prioritize that.
Yeah, that's great advice. It's just like the reason why they tell us on airplane, put your mask on before you help someone else. You have to do it that way. You'll both fail if one of you can't breathe or is too stressed out in this situation.
Ron, before we get before we get to you though, Ron, I do want to follow up on that, Kate, because not everybody knows how to do self-care. I didn't know how to do self-care. And so I love that you gave examples of like the gratitude journal, but I also want to give one that a nurse actually gave me whenever he was in the ICU because he popped a pimple. But it was just go take a shower. Cause I told her, I was like, I don't know what I'm sitting there like crying in front of the nurse's station. I was like, I don't know what to say. I mean, it was just, I was a complete mess. And she was like, just go take a shower. And I was like, I can't go take a shower because he can't take a shower. I was like, they got to like, sponge bath. I was like, just sponge bath me, so, but being able to, just do something as simple as take a shower really does help in those moments. But if not, like, you give some great advice. And Ron, I want to hear from you now. What is your advice to those that are kicking cancer's
just going back
ass?
to what Kate was saying, I've said it from the onset, and I don't say this facetiously. I would be dead if it wasn't for Kate. So her being able to prioritize her health really helped me get through this journey. But my piece of advice to anybody that's going through it right now is it takes a lot of energy to maintain a positive mindset. And you're inevitably going to sink into a dark place every once in a while, at least, as you hit treatment lows, as treatments fail and you move to the next one. But a constant mindset on aggressively pursuing positivity, man. The way that I can frame this is when I had my colon resection back in October, I ended up with an ileostomy. So I was pooping on the outside of my body, and I had this bag of poop attached to me for 6 months. And very, very easy to sink into a negative mindset with that. But taking a step back and realizing that it was a utility that was helping me survive. Like I was legitimately alive because of that bag of poop that was attached to me. It was a way to shift a negative into a positive. And that's just kind of one example where it took some fancy footwork, but getting from a negative headspace into a positive helped tremendously. I would say that, the mental journey is going to be a lot tougher than the physical. Chemotherapy sucks, but it's far more difficult to get through mentally than it is physically. Physical pain, extremely fleeting, difficult to remember what it felt like. But if you can keep yourself in a positive mental headspace overall, it's gonna pay dividends for sure, and it's gonna continue to pay dividends.
advice from the both of you guys. Well, Kate, Ron, thank you so much for joining us on our show. Always welcome back. We would love to be able to see you at our peer support groups too. I know that you guys are local to us, so if you're ever in the Green Cove, Springs area, third Friday at Black Rifle, 4:30 is or 4 o'clock. 4 o'clock.
4 o'clock.
Yeah, is where we sit there and meet. It's caregivers. I mean, we bring our kid too, so I mean, they just kind of go off into the side and play Nintendo. But would love to be able to have you guys come out and meet others. If not, no pressure. But again, thank you so much for joining us, on the show. We appreciate it, and best of luck to the both of you guys, especially as you continue on with your immunotherapy and all of your ventures still in the military.
Really appreciate the time and you guys spreading awareness.
Thank you so much for having us. It was awesome just getting to talk with you both.